I'm going to give another presentation. This one is about the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis.
Yo, what's up, Scotty?
If you talk about a lost civilization,
Scotty, brother, what's up,
some
man? We
reason why
made
it
it,
got
dude.
lost.
We made it.
Something major.
We made it.
And that's why the Younger
We
Dryas
made it,
impact
man.
hypothesis is of great importance to
We
me.
made it, brother.
After
We
my
made
presentation,
it. My mic's
Dr.
arriving
Alan West from
soon.
the Comet Research Group will join me, and we will have a discussion about the work of the Comet Research Group and the challenges that they face. So I shall begin.
Yo,
As I
what's
mentioned
up, bros?
earlier,
What's up, Stash?
in my work,
What's up, Stash?
going right back to the early 1990s,
What's going on, bros?
I began to see the period of around 12,500 to 13,000 years ago as being incredibly important to the ancient civilizations that I was dealing with. And it seemed to be associated with some kind of cataclysm, but I didn't know what it was. And I looked at a number of possibilities, and one of the possibilities was indeed the Earth crust displacement theory by Charles Hapgood, which gets very solid mention in Fingerprints of the Gods.
Things are good.
But there are a number of problems with that theory. If that theory were correct, and I'm not totally ruling it out, if it were correct, it would be an utterly devastating global cataclysm if the Earth's crust were to shift. But then, in the 2000s, particularly since 2007, I came across the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which was then a new hypothesis.
What is up, Russ? Yo,
and I
from
realized
Edmonton,
that
from fucking...
the
Bro, it's
cataclysmic
like,
incident
bro, it's like...
that I was
5
convinced had
a.m.
taken place between around 12,500 and 13,000 years ago was exactly being described by the Comet Research Group. That this is what they were focusing on, a global cataclysm, precisely of the kind that could have wiped a civilization from our memory. So I want to talk a bit about the YDIH, the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. It is not a fringe hypothesis. Everybody behind the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis is a solid, massively credentialed scientist. We're dealing with people who are absolutely mainstream scientists, but they are taking a position involving catastrophes. And something about science, particularly geological science, they don't like catastrophes. They don't like catastrophes. And the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis
Good choice.
has
Yari Curry.
a huge amount of
We'll accept that. We'll
bizarre
accept that.
attacks upon it
I was
over
gonna
the years
say fucking
from other scientists who seem to
yeah,
want to
Luke
get rid of it.
Robotime, bro. Robotime
So look, this is our
on
home,
LA was also really good.
the Milky Way. We're in the Orion Arm, and we're
Paul, what's up,
orbiting
bros?
the center of the galaxy at about
Paul, thanks, man.
515,000 miles an hour. Just consider that. We don't have that sense. I mean, we know the Earth turns, but we are actually in orbit around the center of the Milky Way galaxy at 515,000 miles an hour. And we look at these figures. There's the 514,000, but the Earth is spinning on its own axis at 1,000 miles an hour if you're at the equator. 1,000 miles an hour. We're sitting on something that's running at 1,000 miles an hour. And it's going round the Milky Way galaxy.
Thank you, man. Thank you for sharing.
So it takes 225 million years, despite that vast speed, for our solar system to make a complete circuit of the center of the Milky Way. So we've had about 20 galactic years since the Sun and the Earth first formed. Now here's the funny thing. The Earth's orbit around the center of the Milky Way is not on a flat plane. The Earth does this. The whole solar system does this kind of sinusoidal motion as it orbits around the center of the galaxy. And it has been suggested that this motion, as we pass through the central plane of the galaxy every 27 or 30 million years, puts us into a dense and dangerous area of the galaxy where we're much more likely to receive comet impacts than we
man.
would
Thank you,
at
brother.
other
Thank
times.
you, man. Thank you, buddy.
And,
Thank you, man.
There is a theory that these 27.5 million year cycles are a result of that interaction with the dense central plane of the galaxy. And there's been a lot of good science published on this. I think it's very interesting. It suggests that mass extinctions events on Earth may occur roughly every 27 to 30 million years.
Thank you, bros.
Potentially
Thank
linked
you,
to the
guys.
solar system's passage through the crowded
Thanks,
midplane
bros.
of the Milky Way galaxy.
All my friends here, the whole family here.
The scientific work was done by Rampino and co-authors. They note that the solar system passes through the midplane of the galaxy approximately every 26 to 30 million years. They speculate this could cause increased encounters with dark matter, disturbing cometary orbits, and so on and so forth.
Thanks, bros. Thank you, guys.
So where do comets come from? There are two main sources.
I think I've always wanted to go
Kuiper
there,
belt,
man.
and the other is the Oort cloud.
Christian, what's up, man?
What this cycle seems to
Everyone's
show
here. What's up, man?
is that we have these
morning
periodic showers
streams. We might do
of
morning
comets that
streams.
come in from the solar system's Oort cloud, come in from deep space. It's a kind of junkyard of icy bodies. Both the Oort cloud and the Kuiper belt are thought to be sources of comets. It's very likely that the comet that was responsible for the Younger Dryas impacts was a comet that came in from deep space, was attracted by the Earth's gravity and by the sun's gravity, and went into orbit around the sun. Unfortunately, an orbit that crosses the orbit of the Earth. And comets are not. They're not just empty snowballs. Comets are full of masses of rock as well. Let's take Comet 67P, photographed by the Rosetta probe. There's its nucleus. The nucleus of a giant comet can exceed 200 kilometers in diameter. And the scientists working on the Younger Dryas impact think we're looking at a comet that was originally at least 100 kilometers in diameter, that came into the inner solar system and started to disintegrate. To give you an idea, that's 67P overlaid on San Francisco. Needless to say, an impact with such an object would be utterly devastating. And we've been observing comets in the solar system for quite a while. And the one that teaches us very important lessons is Comet Shoemaker-Levy 9, which hit Jupiter in 1994. The massive gravity of Jupiter caused this comet to break up into multiple fragments. In fact, it broke up into 21 fragments.
Cool,
you can
man.
see some of them here, these glowing
Ox energy,
trails
man.
of light.
Ox energy.
And when they smashed into Jupiter, Jupiter drew them in with its gravity. Total explosive power of the Shoemaker-Levy 9 impacts, 300 gigatons.
Nice, bro.
A gigaton is equivalent to 1 billion tons of TNT. I nearly said DMT. 1 million tons of DMT. I mean, can you imagine?
Let's do this shit.
Bring it on. The stockpiled nuclear arsenal of the entire Earth, were it to explode at once, would be equivalent to just 6.4 gigatons. So we're talking just enormous explosive events. This is the moment. I've talked about this before, and I'll say it again here. Thank you, Jupiter. We owe everything to Jupiter. Jupiter is the giant guardian of our planet. With its huge gravity, it is drawing in comets that would otherwise have made life on Earth completely impossible. So Jupiter is our protector. And Jupiter is so big, Jupiter can take it. Not a problem. If one of those things hit the Earth, we'd be done for. Yeah. So, of course, the biggest impact event that we all know about, that's still in current discussion, is the so-called KT, or the Cretaceous Paleogene event, as it's now called, that made the dinosaurs extinct at the Cretaceous Tertiary boundary. You can see that boundary. It's a boundary layer, and there's a huge extinction follows it.
Oh, my input display.
These days, there's quite a lot of thought that the object that made the dinosaurs extinct wasn't an asteroid, it was a comet. That is still an argument, it's still a theory. Whether it was a comet or an asteroid, we know what it did, and what it did was massive. the world changed utterly. The former order of things was swept away, and a new order began to emerge. So the dinosaurs aren't quite extinct. That fella down there, that's a dinosaur. The birds survived. These guys vanished, but the birds survived. They are dinosaurs. And then why am I showing you this little shrew here? Purgatorius. Well, that is because that's our 65-million-year-old mother. The mammals were going nowhere during the age of the dinosaurs. They were dead in the water. But when the dinosaurs were gone, the mammals suddenly began evolving and stepping into niches that previously had been unavailable to them. And that was the beginning of mammalian evolution that fundamentally led to us. So, yes, it made the dinosaurs extinct, but we're here. It changed the world completely. Now, that's called the Cretaceous-Tertiary boundary, or the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary, as they've renamed it. You can see that it's a very distinct boundary layer in the rock, and it's full of what are called impact proxies. They're full of the evidence that there was a cosmic impact, even though there may not be a crater immediately visible in the area. These include iridium, carbon microspherules, nanodiamonds, shocked quartz, melt glass, suicide and other minerals melted at extremely high temperatures, more than 2,200 degrees centigrade, the boiling point of quartz, across a wide area of the Earth's surface. And here's Luis Alvarez and his son Walter Alvarez at the KT boundary. They faced exactly the same kind of bullshit that the Comet Research Group is facing today. They couldn't produce a crater initially, and the scientific community turned on them, savaged them, sought to destroy their reputations, said they were making it all up, it was false, it was wrong, it was fraud, it was a hoax. But it wasn't. It was real. And they did eventually find the crater. And that crater is the Chicxulub. The crater in Mexico is deeply buried beneath the Gulf of Mexico, shown up in remote scanning. Since then, it's not been an argument anymore. We know why the dinosaurs went extinct. NASA tells us that these extinction level events occur only once every 100 million years. I wonder what magical frequency NASA are dialing into to say that 100 million year intervals. Obviously, if there's 100 million year intervals, we don't need to worry. You know, I mean, the last one was 60 million years ago. We got 40 million years. Why should we care? But a number of eminent astronomers say we should care very much indeed, and that our cosmic environment is much more active than NASA teaches us, and they're particularly concerned with comets. I'm showing Fred Hoyle, Chandra Wickram Singh, Victor Klube, and Bill Napier here.
I saw you completed some GoldenEye too,
what
Russ.
is a meteor shower? Well, every single meteor shower, whether it's the Taurids, whether it's the Orionids, whether it's the Leonids, every single meteor shower is what's left of a disintegrated comet. It's the dust trail of a disintegrated comet, and as the dust enters the Earth's atmosphere, it burns up, and we see shooting stars. And they say, not to worry. Meteorites are usually small. They almost always burn up quickly in the atmosphere. Little chance they're going to strike the Earth's surface. Just see a beautiful shooting star show. The message is, don't worry. But the prominent astronomers who disagree say we should worry very much indeed. That the Earth is orbiting in the trail of a giant destroyed comet. And several times in the past 13,000 years has suffered cataclysmic bombardment from bits of cometary debris. And that's had profound implications for history. There's always been a fear of comets. Going right back into human history, there's this terror of comets, that omen in the sky seems to presage danger, and you have to ask yourself why. Why should that be so?
Yo, thanks everyone for being here, man.
The
Scotty,
Taurid
Paul.
meteor stream, as was explained earlier,
Yes.
we call it the Taurid meteor stream because that alone is a result of precession. If you look at the
Yeah,
sky,
right?
the
Thank
radiant
you.
point out of
You
which
really
the
made my
Taurid
day. You
meteor
really
stream
made my day,
appears to
honestly.
emerge is in the constellation of Taurus. It isn't coming from the constellation of Taurus. That is just a visual illusion. That's the bit of the sky that it appears to be coming from, and that's why it's called the Taurid meteor stream. The Taurid meteor stream is 30 million kilometers wide of cometary debris. Some bits of it are just dust, and some bits of it are very large, including Comet Enki. If you read the mainstream coverage of this, they'll tell you that Comet Enki, what's left of it, was the source of the Taurid meteor stream. I disagree, and so do most of the scientists working on this. Comet Enki is one of the fragments of the original very large comet that was broken up in the gravitational field of the Earth and the Sun. And then
ADM and Home Depot, I'm
19 of the
guessing,
brightest near-Earth
probably just a lot of
that are several kilometers in diameter
plumbers
are in
and
the Taurid meteor
electricians.
stream. It takes the Earth
And people work,
several
and
days
I can't imagine
through
many
the Taurid meteor stream. It's so big.
home
The Taurid
people
meteor stream is full
doing
of filaments
ADM.
of debris.
I can see a lot
Some
of
of those
plumbers
filaments
doing
are very
that, though.
small debris. Some of them are much larger debris and much more dangerous. We pass through it twice a year. I've likened it in the past to strapping on a blindfold and crossing an 8-lane highway and just hoping that you don't get hit by a truck. Let it be a motorcycle at least, rather than a truck. And that's the origin of the Taurid meteor stream. There's two parts of it, the beta Taurids. They're encountered in June and July. And then you have the Taurids in November, which are sometimes called the Halloween fireworks. So we cross the Taurid meteor stream in June, July, and we cross it in October, November as well. And it's pretty clear, and again this was touched on I think by Randall earlier, that the Tunguska event, this cataclysmic airburst over Siberia in 1908, fell out of the beta Taurids. The 30th of June 1908, the date of that impact, is the peak of the beta Taurids. It would be most extraordinary if this wasn't a Taurid object. But it exploded in the atmosphere, technically an airburst before reaching the ground, and this is the effect. It exploded in the sky at an altitude of about 5 to 6 kilometers. The date was the 30th of June. The object is thought to have been about 60 meters to 190 meters wide. That airburst was utterly cataclysmic. It flattened 80 million trees across an area of more than 2,000 square kilometers. That's an area larger than London. This thing, if this had exploded in the sky over a major city, we would all be very concerned about the Taurid meteor stream right now. It's just a lucky accident that it exploded over a completely uninhabited area of Siberia in 1908. If it had exploded over a major city, that whole city
Like
would
this
be
fucking
wiped
game,
out, would be
man.
gone.
Like, where the fuck is it?
So the astronomers have been looking at the sky, coming to the conclusion that we're looking at the debris stream of a fragmented giant comet through which we pass twice a year. Other scientists, Comet Research Group, have been looking at the ground and making disturbing new discoveries. This is Bill Napier, he's one of the astronomers, and he's just drawing attention between the astronomical information and the terrestrial information, and he's referring to a catastrophe of celestial origin which has been postulated to have occurred around 12,900 before the present. That's the Younger Dryas impact. And the reference to a catastrophe of celestial origin refers to the work of this team. Alan West is with us. He'll be joining me on stage shortly. James Kennett, Richard Firestone, James Whittaker, Albert Goodyear, Christopher Moore, and 60 others, major scientists in their field, highly respected individuals who are convinced from the evidence that the Earth was hit not by a single object, but by multiple objects, a sort of shotgun scatter of objects, many of which blew up in the sky, some of which probably hit the North American ice cap. And they've presented compelling evidence for that. If you look at the world during the last ice age, you can see North America, particularly the northern part of North America, was covered in an ice cap 2 miles deep. So also northern Europe. Sea level was 400 feet lower than it is today. Why? Because all that water was in those frozen ice caps. Here's the graph of the last phase of the ice age. The last glacial maximum generally put it around 20,000 years ago, approximately, when the last glaciation reached its maximum extent. Then after that, the world did begin to warm up, and it warmed up quite politely and quite gradually. And it must have been glorious for the people in the world, particularly in high latitudes. to see that warming effect. But then suddenly, around 12,800 years ago, global temperatures just rocketed down, and they went back to the same level that they were at the peak of the last ice age. And then you have 1,200 years of extremely cold weather. This is the period when all the great megafauna go extinct. And then, around 11,600 years ago, the world suddenly warms up again. Very dramatically, very suddenly. And that period of 1,200 years, that's called the Younger Dryas. That's the name that's given to it after a particular kind of alpine flower that flourishes in cold conditions. So we're looking at a huge extinctions of the megafauna, both in North America and in South America, and in Europe, and in Siberia, all over the world. That this was a cataclysm of radical climate change, there's no doubt about that. Nobody disputes that. But the question is, what caused it? What caused the cataclysm? Why did the climate change so suddenly? What happened? And the explanation that's given by the mainstream on this really begs further questions. What is said is that there's a thing called the global meridional overturning circulation, of which the Gulf Stream is a part. It's a flow of warm and cold water currents that travel around the whole of the world ocean. And the Gulf Stream in particular plays a very important role in keeping the northern latitudes warm. And the suggestion is that the mainstream view is that there was flooding out of the glacial lakes on the American mainland, and that this flooding of cold water interrupted the overturning circulation, the kind of central heating system of our planet, and caused our planet to get much colder. Now, there's no doubt that is the mechanism, but the question is, why? Why was there so much meltwater released into the world ocean that it could actually stop the Gulf Stream dead in its tracks? And that's a question that the mainstream has never satisfactorily addressed, in my view. But what is clear is that at the beginning of the Younger Dryas, at the very moment when the world is suddenly getting cold, something really weird happens. Sea levels rise suddenly. There's a dramatic pulse of sea level rise. It's not an enormous rise, it's 2 to 4 meters within a few decades or less of YD onset. Why is this puzzling? Because we are entering a period of deep freeze. In a period of deep freeze, you'd expect the ice mass to grow and sea levels to fall. You wouldn't expect the ice mass to carve off huge amounts of water, dump it into the world ocean, and cause sea levels to rise. But that's what happened. That's fundamental. What triggered those meltwater discharges? And I think the answer is very clear. Those meltwater discharges were triggered by fragments of that disintegrating comet hitting the North American ice cap. And Randall is absolutely right. Hitting a 2-mile deep ice cap, they're not going to leave craters that are visible, but they are going to produce an enormous amount of water that's going to rush into the world ocean. And you can see from the diagram on the right the spread of the evidence that we now have for what's called the Younger Dryas boundary, where these proxies of impacts are found in the soil all around the world, heading all the way from the far west of North America as far east as Syria. Basically, the Younger Dryas boundary contains exactly the same impact proxies that were identified in the case of the KT boundary. And we can look at it here. There's Murray Springs on the left. You can see the Younger Dryas boundary. It's about a hand's width in size. And again, all over the world, Gainey, Michigan, Lommel, Belgium, iridium, nanodiamonds, sedimentary layers in Murray Springs. It's just all over the world. I'm with Alan West here at Murray Springs, and he's showing me the black mat. This is referred to as the black mat. This is where the primary evidence for the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis is found, because that black mat is full of the proxies that could only be caused by airbursts or impacts from an extraterrestrial object. And actually at Murray Springs, this This is the excavation of Murray Springs. They're excavating a mammoth there. They gave her a name, Eloise, and that black mat was found draped over her body. That mammoth died in the Younger Dryas impact. And I'm not going to try and read these papers to you. I just want to show you that the Comet Research Group is an extremely serious group of people who have faced unwarranted opposition from other scientists and who are bringing very important information to the field and are doing so in the right way. They're publishing that information in peer-reviewed journals. And it just goes on and on and on. The evidence that they have brought forward, and at the same time the sneering dismissal of other scientists towards that evidence, that is also part of our fight for the past. I'm just going to show these images from different scientific papers that's been published by the Comet Research Group to make it clear to you that this is scientifically well-established data. This is not fringe data by any means. Journal of Geology, 2014, July 2015, large platinum anomaly in the Greenland ice core points to a cataclysm at the Younger Dryas. That's the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. It's there in Nature's Scientific Reports. We have biomass burning, Younger Dryas cosmic impact 12,800 years, with possibility of evidence of impact proxies even as far south as the Antarctic. And in fact, the 2014 YDB strewn field of impact proxies has been traced across 50 million square kilometers. But the studies from May 2018 reporting impact proxies in Antarctica's Taylor Valley also linked to the evidence of an impact airburst 12,800 years ago. We're gradually seeing how global this event was, what huge parts of the world that it affected, and the fascination with finding a crater is completely ignoring the nature of the event. This was large airbursts of the Tunguska type that took place all around the world. Patagonia in Chile, Abu Huraira in Syria. This is a really fascinating site. It's so close to Göbekli Tepe, and the evidence for a massive airburst there around 12,800 years ago is absolutely compelling. Indeed, there's a map. You can see Abu Huraira and Göbekli Tepe just a couple of hundred miles further away from Abu Huraira. I think the event at Abu Huraira played a very important role in the Göbekli Tepe story. This is an artist's impression of the airburst that took place over Abu Huraira. And interestingly, I have, of course, a lot of opposition from skeptics, but this was Michael Shermer, who edits the Skeptic magazine, who I've also debated. And after looking at the Abu Huraira evidence, even Michael Shermer had to admit that he needed to adjust his priors. In other words, his condemnation of the Comet Research Group and my work, adjust his priors in the light of more research like this and modify. It was nice to hear that from Michael. At least he had the capacity to admit that he could change his mind, which some of the other scientists I've had the misfortune to deal with, their minds cannot be changed at all. They're like Mount Everest, just stands there, cannot be changed or altered in any way. There we are. Sorry, I have a bit of a rant every now and then. So again, Atacama Desert, we're seeing vast patches of glassy rock in Chilean desert, exploding comet. The evidence just goes on and on and on, and it keeps on going on. Now, one of the things that's happened, and I hope that Alan will talk about this a little bit, is that the scientific opposition to the Comet Research Group has been so huge. There's been an attempt to cancel them, to cut them out of mainstream journals, to the point where they're getting tired of arguing with the editors of mainstream journals, and they've created a journal of their own, Airbursts and Cratering Impacts. It is peer-reviewed, and most of the very recent science has been published in that paper. So I just want to show you that this keeps on going, that there is more and more evidence for it. And this is a little sinister. This is just a screenshot from a YouTube channel. Notice the way that YouTube gives us these warnings. We're not grown-ups, you know. We have to be told what to think by YouTube.
I don't know, though. It's really low quality gear, though.
That the comet issue raises issues of climate change. YouTube feels compelled to tell us that the United Nations reports that climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. Human activities have been the main driver of climate change. In other words, one of the reasons that the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis is being snubbed and attempts are being made to snuff it out is because it contradicts the present narrative that human beings are responsible for all climate change on this planet. I have no doubt that human beings are responsible for some climate change. But if we look back into the past record, we can see that much more radical climate changes have occurred at a time when there was supposedly no industry on Earth at all. So I think that's part of the problem, that this cataclysmic event, which caused radical climate change, was not caused by human. And that has led the establishment to try to marginalize this theory because it goes against the current prevailing narrative. So I'm just looking at, I don't want to read all of this out, but it's a fair summary of the evidence and counter-arguments against the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. And then, of course, the gang of scientists who hate the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, particularly including individuals like Nicholas Pinter, Andrew Scott, Vance Holliday, Mark Boslow. So it's interesting. In 2011, they published a requiem for the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, washing their hands that we've completely destroyed the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. It will never raise its head again. Here's its requiem. So weirdly, the same group of authors in 2023 are publishing another requiem for the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. Like their first one wasn't good enough, they call it a comprehensive refutation of the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. It's a rubbish paper from beginning to end. It's full of hatred and jealousy and envy. That the guys writing these papers didn't make that discovery themselves. But the papers have been well responded to. Martin Sweatman from the University of Edinburgh has done excellent work rebutting the so-called comprehensive deduction of the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. Lawrence Powell, very important work, Premature Rejection in Science, the case of the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. This is a problem we have. I see it very much in archaeology because that's my primary focus at the moment, but I suspect it's right across the scientific world. The tendency to prematurely reject new ideas. The tendency to say, oh, here's a new idea. Let's look for everything we can find in it that's bad, and let's exaggerate that, and let's try and get rid of it. Wouldn't it be better when a new idea comes up if people said, let's look for what's good in it. Let's look for what we can see in this that might be useful, that might be helpful to understand our predicament of human beings. This destructive criticism within science, it has its place, but it allows very negative human emotions, particularly jealousy and envy, to come across and prematurely reject important scientific developments. So Lawrence Powell's paper is very important on this, and he's carried on subsequently. So despite the hostility they're facing, the Comet Research Group are constantly coming up with new evidence which supports and reinforces their theory. It's like with all paradigm shifts. A paradigm never changes overnight. It has to be overwhelmed by new evidence, and not just a little new evidence, but lots and lots and lots of new evidence. And that is what is happening right now with the work of the Comet Research Group. So I don't think that I don't think there's a big problem in understanding why those ocean currents were interrupted 12,800 years ago. It was the Younger Dryas impact. What happened at the end of the Younger Dryas is much less well studied. Way back years ago, Sir Fred Hoyle in the 1980s proposed that the sudden end and the global warming that followed it, the sudden end of the Younger Dryas 11,600 years ago, might have been caused by another cometary impact, another bit of that fragmenting giant comet hitting a world ocean, sending a huge amount of water vapor into the upper atmosphere and creating a greenhouse effect. And then, of course, Robert Schoch has done excellent work on the possibility that solar activity was involved. I think it's hard to make the case for solar activity at the beginning of the Younger Dryas, but there's a very good case to be made for solar activity causing that sudden warming at the end of the Younger Dryas. I don't see why the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis and solar fluctuations shouldn't coexist side by side. The impact hypothesis primarily focuses on the beginning of the Younger Dryas, not on the end of the Younger Dryas. So I think we need to remain open to all of these possibilities while keeping fixed in our mind the realization that the Younger Dryas was a truly cataclysmic global event. It's interesting that the Younger Dryas did end abruptly 11,600 years ago, and as Randall said this morning, that coincides with a massive pulse of meltwater pulse 1b. And interestingly, the date of meltwater pulse 1b, 11,600 years ago, 9,600 BC, is exactly the date that Plato gives us in his Timaeus and Critias for the submergence of the lost continent of Atlantis. And I will return to that in my closing talk tomorrow. Now I'd like to invite Alan on stage, Alan West. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Dr. Alan West from the Comet Research Group. I've had the privilege of knowing Alan for many years and working with Alan. Alan appeared in the first season of Ancient Apocalypse, where we talked at length about the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis in the final episode. So we're going to handle this a bit like a podcast now. I'm going to interview Alan, unless you have some preliminary words that you want to say first, Alan. You're ready for questions? Okay. In that case. So Alan, some of your critics claim that giant comet impacts are exceedingly rare, that they occur only once every few million years, and that's too rare to have happened 12,800 years ago. Is that true?
Well, let's take a look at some of the evidence. Some of it Graham covered already. I think some of this will be new to you. He talked about the Oort cloud. And of course, this is our solar system. That's the asteroid belt. The Oort cloud is a gigantic cloud. It's so far out that we have trouble even seeing it with the largest telescopes that we have. But this is one of the objects that's in it. So, and you can see it's as big as Mount Everest. So, keep going better. Okay.
I need a beer.
All right, so it's as big as Mount Everest, and I don't know how often any of you have seen Mount Everest, but let's take a look at the next slide, which will put it into perspective. Here's Sedona. That's the size of the object that we think hit at the Younger Dryas. So it's 120 miles across, about half the size of Arizona. So obviously that would cause a lot of trouble if it hit Arizona. So now Graham already talked about the KPG impact, where 66 million years ago, 6-mile wide comet or asteroid hit the planet, obviously knocked out all of the dinosaurs. Whoops, wrong one. And that's the size of the crater compared to the state of Arizona. So you can see the crater, which is off Yucatan, is larger than the entire state of Arizona. So it kicked up so much dust and debris that it basically caused what's called an impact winter, meaning that not only was there no sunlight hitting the ground for a long period of time, but it was just bitterly cold. So we think something like that happened with the Younger Dryas too. Now, 790,000 years ago, not very long ago, this was the Australasian impact event. So another comet or asteroid broken up like that, hit in Southeast Asia. Chunks of molten glass were thrown across 10% of the planet. So it went from Australia up into Southeast Asia, into China, up in that area. So these things happened fairly recently. Of course, you've seen the Younger Dryas, heard about it. This is what we think happened, except probably it was larger than this, but a lot of these objects came in, blew up in the atmosphere in gigantic explosions, and it would have covered at least half of the
Here,
planet.
we're going to get the sound on the mic, hopefully.
So these things while the big ones are fairly rare, the smaller ones are not so rare. We'll get into that in just a minute here too.
Yeah.
That was sick. That was a sick sound. That was a good sound.
As you say, I mean, the critics point out that these were all.
That was a good can opening sound. I'm not gonna lie.
And they say that you guys, the Comet Research Group, are making them seem more dangerous than they are. Is that true?
Well, let's look at the danger, and here's one of the figures. Every year, between 30 and 60 asteroids pass between us and the moon, and many of them are within the orbits of our satellites, the communication satellites. Your cell phones depend on it, your bank accounts depend on it, and these big objects
relax,
they're not particularly
I'm too excited. I'm very excited and very happy. I love that you're here. I'm just glad my friends are here.
Graham brought up,
I want to give you guys like a
why
tour
worry? You know, they didn't hit us. And the analogy I use is it's a little like your neighbor comes over and says to you with a worried look on his face, somebody shot bullet holes through my window last night. And I say, why worry? What's my window? So it's actually a near miss. If it could take out satellites, it could just as easily hit us. And when it does, here's the kind of things that can happen. This one was in 1908 in Tunguska, Siberia. It's an animation of what happened. This was a very small object, maybe 40, 50 feet across. Knocked down 80 million trees. This is an actual photo. They're all spread out all across Siberian tundra.
Really?
This is what would happen if it happened over New York City. It's bigger than New York City. And this is an animation of what would happen if you were on the ground in New York City. So they say, why worry? Well, this is the reason that you should worry. So this is Shoemaker-Levy, 1994, whacked into Jupiter. Now you think that looks awfully small, right? Small dots in there. But let's put Earth by one of the blemishes that it put on Jupiter. That blemish is several times larger than the Earth, and Shoemaker, the scientist who discovered it, said if that thing had hit the Earth, we'd have had 3 to 4 months of total darkness, just like the darkest night. No sunlight, no photosynthesis, plants not growing, bitterly cold. That happened in our lifetime. So we know that they hit planets. So the skeptics say, why worry? There's the reason to worry.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is even more of a worry. This is the 2013 airburst of Chelyabinsk in Russia. These are actual videos of what happened.
The big planet.
Blew the door off the garage.
I missed it.
Blew in the window,
I was fixing
knocked
chat.
the people over.
I missed
Blew
it.
in another window, knocked the people over. So that was a small one. That was maybe 30, 40 feet across. So not much to speak of, but dangerous. Not going to cause the extinction of the human race, but certainly would be bad news over.
Yeah, Scotty, we're playing on the 32-incher, man.
Here.
We're playing on the 32-inch CRT, my brother.
Another one that's been extremely controversial.
It's nice. It's really nice.
3,600 years ago, the destruction
I'm really
of
blessed.
the
Thank
biblical
you,
city
Stevie. Thank
Sodom.
you, China.
Now, obviously, our
Lovely.
critics
Thank you,
jumped
bro.
on that right away. Well, how do you know it was Sodom?
Again, I'm getting a good mic
honesty,
in a
we
couple
don't.
days.
We did look for, we thought, okay, let's quiet the critics here. We'll look for street signs. So we tried to see if there was something like Sodom
Yeah,
Way.
it's a Toshiba.
Gomorrah Boulevard.
It's a 32-inch Toshiba. It's really nice.
Couldn't find anything, but
It's beautiful.
but that was 2 times hotter
Flat,
than the sun.
flat screen.
And this was a small one. We think it's maybe 55 feet across. So let's take a look at next thing. This is a computer animation that we did. It's called hydrocode modeling. So in the computer, extremely sophisticated bit of software. It took me 2 months to learn how to use this software to do it. It was that difficult. So you can see here the asteroid that we modeled is 55 meters wide, so about 180 feet.
It's fucking really
The
heavy.
energy was more than most atomic bombs.
It's really heavy.
Those are models.
I
of the
moved it
city
myself. I
buildings.
put it
Watch what
myself
happens
on
to
the
them. The thing blows up.
on the table.
And there goes the building.
It was fucking really heavy.
And so this is what the model said happened. So then when we looked on the ground, we found evidence to support that. So this is an artist's rendition of what the roof might have looked like. We
Bro, I got a whole
clay
gym
roof,
here,
many
man.
layers of clay.
I got a whole
built
like
around,
juice. I bought
blocks,
all my
pulled
shit
up.
again.
So look what we found here. This was a
When I
piece
don't know how long
of
you do.
that
When I
roofing
take a break, I might show
material.
some
It was
photos.
seriously contorted. It was harder than concrete.
And just that TV, yeah, I was
Baked
thinking
by the
about that.
impact itself.
Honestly, that's what I'm
And
benching,
also
right? I'm
flattened
benching
the
like
four-story
160
palace.
right now.
This is the foundation of the palace, and it used to be
Pounds.
four-story tall. Instead, all of this material was blown into the valley next door. The shock wave was so intense it actually stripped every building off the top of that hill that you just saw. So now this is top view of the city. About 20,000 people live there.
Bro, that
Well,
really
guess
sucked.
what our
Like,
critics
I'm
did with
a
this?
sucky
We
fucking
published a paper. It was in the world's largest journal. You can see there 600,000 people in 200 countries downloaded this paper, which just shows you that if you write papers that talk about giant rocks from space blowing up cities, people pay attention, got their attention. So our critics, however, took them 4 years to do it, but it was a relentless campaign of trashing our work, calling it fraud, claiming that we manufactured the evidence, that it wasn't real. And so the editors
Alright, I'll show you some
finally
photos
got
now.
sick of hearing from
I'm
them.
gonna show you some photos now.
They retracted the paper. So what did we do? As
It's
Graham
not.
said, we published our own journal, put it in it. In the last year, we've had 300,000 people in 200 countries read our papers.
Oh,
so
I'm gonna do it now. I'm not gonna do it now.
No,
I think I
there.
might.
Bravo.
I'm not gonna do it now.
So just show you that
Alright,
you
I'll
don't
show you.
necessarily have
Show
to
you
fight the
my
critics.
gym
They
setup
tried to
without
stop
me.
us, and we simply went around them.
I'm fucking
And so, you
set
know,
up
you
here,
can fight
bro.
with
I'm not
them,
even.
and
like,
you know, that's you've heard the old story
I'm
about
not bragging,
wrestling
but
with
I'm
pigs.
really excited.
The pigs enjoy it. So, well, this is a little bit of the same thing. We decided not to argue with the critics. We just went around them. So.
And I think your policy has been
That
to
shit, bro.
constantly
Look at
publish
that.
new information,
Fucking
That's
set
the point.
up,
add to the
man.
evidence,
Yeah.
rather than
I'm
getting into
I'm
these
really
fist
hyped
fights
on
with
this, man.
That-
extremely negative people.
That's
Just
the
keep
thing.
presenting them with evidence they can't refute.
That's exactly
Really
it. You know,
fucking hyped.
their critics are very active on Facebook and Twitter, you know, trashing what we're doing. We've decided to take the high road. You know, we basically ignore them, which is the worst thing you can do to
450.
somebody who wants to.
All of
Fucking
this is
trouble.
450 Canadian.
But it's actually worked. So now, interesting. What else we can do is outlast them. So that's part of what we're doing now. Interesting story about this guy. This is Max Planck. The turn of the century, he came up with quantum theory, which is you've probably all heard of that. It's a big thing nowadays. You know, quantum
Now my fucking
and all that. A lot of that
other
came
cat's
from his research. So Max Planck had an interesting idea because he was just met with intense criticism too. I mean, people trashed his work, and
Alright,
he
I'm
was
not
just
gonna- I'm
trying
just
to get
gonna
the
keep playing
hypothesis
the-
out there. So what did he do? He came up with this idea: science advances one funeral at a time.
Yeah.
Okay, now, just to be clear, these are two of the late scientists who opposed Max, Professor O.B. Struction, Dr. Inno et al. So now, just to be clear about Max, he was not advocating shooting his critics, although I'm sure it occurred to him more than a few times. But nevertheless, the idea is that your critics die out, the opposition goes away, and people say, well, that idea made a lot of sense. Why were they against it in the first place? So we're intending to try and outlast our
Sick,
critics.
thanks, man. Thank you, brother.
It may
Thank you,
not be
man.
in my lifetime or
Thank you, dude.
Graham's, but
So we do weightlifting
truth is
streams
gonna come
like
out eventually.
Truth will
soon,
come out.
very soon.
So, your papers report again and again finding very unusual materials in the Younger Dryas boundary layer. Give us some examples. What are the most unusual ones?
Okay, well, this is the thing. The critics attack us saying that what we're finding is not real. We had actually one critic accused me of making these iron spherules in my basement and salting them at these sites. So those things, you can see they're sometimes smaller than an ant. So what does that mean? It got so hot that every car in the parking lot would have been turned into a pool of molten iron and plastic within less than a few minutes. So incredibly destructive. So we found lots of those at sites. We also found something called shock quartz. And you can see here, it's these small lines that are in there are called lamellae. They're actually fractures in the quartz. The quartz is the size of a sesame seed. And just to give you an idea of how much pressure is involved, this is the Washington Monument.
How are you guys though? How are you, Scotty? Enough about me. How are you? I mean, you can learn. You can learn if you want, but
Elephants on top of the Washington Monument, so 750,000 pounds per square inch. So just this massive amount of pressure on these tiny little quartz grains, and nothing on this planet except people and impact events can cause that. So now we also found nanodiamonds. You can see this is an animation of a virus. They're about the third of the size of a virus. If we took all the diamonds that we found in 60 some odd sites across the planet and put them into a single ball, it'd be pretty much bigger than downtown.
she's taking the piss. Why is that, man? Oh shit, dude.
And these are
your
actually
ex.
images with a
Oh damn, I didn't know
$10
that,
million
dude. I'm sorry,
electron
man.
microscope of some of the diamonds we found
I
stuck in
didn't
the
know that at
Greenland
all.
ice sheet. We actually had a crew
Thank you
go
for
to
opening up.
Greenland. We took
She's
the
taking
ice
the
back,
piss. Why?
melted
What's she
it,
doing?
and this was what was in it.
You can vent here. This is a
So those
safe
are some things
venting
we're seeing.
space.
They're very unusual, and the critics basically say, "Oh, we're making it all up."
What about the high levels of radioactivity
I'm sorry,
that
bro.
you found at some
Sorry to hear
sites? Which
That's
I know
rough.
critics have disputed. What's your reaction to that?
Okay, let's take a look at some of the evidence here.
Life
So you
is
saw
full of
this in
challenges.
Graham's presentation. That's the famous black mat at Murray Springs, just not very far from Fort Huachuca. This was one of the first sites that I visited, and most of our evidence is not only here, but in
Does
50
she,
to 60
like-
sites across the country.
Is she
Well,
impeding
interestingly enough,
the
it
sale?
was radioactive. I mean, not radioactive in the sense that it would kill you, but it was much higher than it should have been. So we published a paper very early on about this, and along with this is a mammoth leg bone from New Mexico, the same thing. The yellow
I'm just so
staining
fucking
is
bad.
a uranium ore called carnotite.
Why? Oh, no way. Sorry, man.
So this went viral on the internet. People were saying, "Oh my gosh, nuclear war 12,800 years ago." So we tried to talk them out of it. I mean, there was
You
no
should threaten to
evidence
put
of
it on the
nuclear
curb.
war, but we're not sure what they had in mind. But we figured this might be something. So I suppose they thought the Clovis Native Americans had nukes. Now, if they did, that would give a whole new twist to the mammoth extinction.
Threaten to put it on the curb just like that. Never mind. Sorry, man. Yeah, that's dumb.
So some scientists
Seriously, threaten to put it on the fucking curb.
they question your evidence. They say it's just
I know you gotta be
regular
careful because
terrestrial
she,
material.
like,
That you've misidentified
Should be
it,
petty.
or it's just a coincidence that you find it in the Younger Dryas boundary. What's your answer to that?
Okay, so let's look at Murray Springs again with this coincidence idea. So let's imagine that we could strip back the land and show what it looked like
Oh, man.
12,800 years ago. It looked something like this. Probably not a whole lot different than today.
are her things
So, but
really
here's the
impeding the
difference.
sail though? I mean,
So,
maybe you,
There
I'm
was
not,
a
I'm not
rain
saying
of
you are
those
projecting,
melted iron spherules
but I mean,
diamonds and
I
other
never
things
bought a house, I
in
never
a
sold a
million
house,
times the normal background.
but I mean, like,
Now, they're
I've
falling,
rented
to be
apartments
fair, they're
where
falling
people
out
had
of
a
the
ton of
atmosphere
shit
all the
and,
time
like,
because
their
we
shit
have
doesn't
meteorites, small ones coming in all the time. So there's a small rain of this material.
my
This was a
opinion on the
million
apartment
times
or
greater.
whatever.
So let's put it
Yeah,
back
it's not
together
stupid.
again. So it's all there. So could it be really a coincidence?
No.
10 million tons of spherules across
What
the
if you, like,
sites
put
we
it
looked at. Those are just the
In like
ones
a
we know
room, in a
of.
single room, all their stuff,
400
or like in a
million
garage,
tons
like you have a
of
garage.
nanodiamonds. So is that a coincidence? You know, just
And
simply
then I suggest
impossible that it
the
could
curve,
be. The critics don't ever give up, you know, but that's still what they're saying. So obviously we think the YD impact did it, and that's
Oh,
the
I'm
best
just so
explanation
fucking shitty.
anybody's come up with so far.
So you also claim that human populations at around that time, 12,800 years ago, went through a massive decline. This is a very dramatic figure, as
that's
much
already
as
full of her stuff in the garage, Dan. Sorry,
on the
dude.
planet. I know your critics don't like that idea at all.
Sorry, man.
Again, how do you respond to the criticisms?
Yeah, so here's some evidence for it. This is chert or flint. You might know it. For the Native Americans, this was like Home Depot and Ace Hardware all rolled into one because they made tools out of it. So these are some of the incredibly beautiful spear points that they made out of chert.
Oh, it's way too fucking
And
loud.
curious
That
thing
was way
is there
too
were
loud.
we found
I'm
11
still
chert
learning this
quarries
TV.
in the
That was
Eastern
way
United
too loud.
States. They were everywhere. So they were in Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and
7.
South Carolina.
That was so
Not
loud.
long after, right around 12,000
I'm already
years
deaf in
ago,
one fucking
they
ear, and
disappeared.
already deaf in the
they
other.
were abandoned. The church was there, but the people weren't there. For nearly 700 years, nobody used any of those. Now, imagine if you're building a house and you decide, well, I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to go to Ace Hardware or Home Depot. I'll just stay home and build it. Well, you know, pretty hard. But that's what happened. So we found that 2/3 of the human population across at least the northern hemisphere,
Yeah.
quite likely the south, to vanish. So how do you think about it?
It's not good.
Just imagine that if the person sitting on either side of you disappeared within a few days to weeks to months, they were gone. 2/3 of your family disappeared. 2/3 of everybody you know disappeared. What kind of effect
I don't know,
would that
man.
have on civilization?
You can
It'd
try
be
to
something
like
you
ignore
wouldn't
her
forget about.
bullshit. I know
We
it's
hear
easier
that
said
in a
than
lot
done,
of the
but
stories about
you just focus on yourself,
these disasters. It was a striking, stunning turn
trying to
of
get the
events.
sale done, the photos.
So now we thought, let's be fair. What if it wasn't the comet? Now we think it was, but I came across
Oh, I
one
see.
scientist who
Yeah,
said, well, they just headed south for the winter. So now
I
there's
don't know,
probably
man.
a lot of you that might do
Where
that
the
too.
fuck
You
is
know,
this
it
gun
makes
here?
sense, right? You're cold up in Michigan or New York, so you head for Arizona or Florida. So, well, we decided to test that out.
Well,
and
man,
the
yeah,
best
you're right,
estimate is
but I
there
know
were
what you're saying. Like, it's
tens
not
of
ideal,
thousands
but I mean,
of Native Americans in North America then. Not a lot, it wasn't heavily populated. So we decided to look and see if there were tens of
and I know
thousands.
that like the women
we
market
certainly
is
would know if they
abysmal.
all headed south into Mexico.
Yes, I'm blaming
We'd be
women.
pretty sure
The
that
women
there'd be
market
some
is
evidence of it,
abysmal.
right? Well, we did. We looked and we found evidence for 3 people, tens of thousands, and here they are.
It's fucking really shit.
Yeah, these are diplomacies. 3 of them headed for Acapulco to sip margaritas on the beach, you know, it makes sense. It was cold up north, so they headed south.
Yeah, I know,
So,
and
no,
dude,
in
like,
actual, all joking aside, there was
I
no
know what you mean,
evidence
man.
for people, a massive migration to the south. What
the
happened to them?
fickleness.
They got killed. So,
The hoops that you have to jump through.
Yeah, the question of extinctions.
I mean, yeah, like it's like you can say, oh, you just gotta find the right person, but it's like,
You are
dude, like,
directly
it's like people are really fucking shitty.
the event with the
Like,
extinction
the
of literally
chances of
mammoths,
finding like a
mastodons,
good
saber-toothed tigers,
fucking
and so on
person,
and so
a
forth.
good woman, a
Your
good
critics
human is
claim
like
that
fucking
human
really
hunting, like it's called the overkill theory, did it, or maybe climate change. Why do you think it was a comet impact?
well,
That's
let's
like
take a look at
cool
different
shit.
possibilities. So, first, here's what happened. There were
like a cool woman.
tens
Man.
of millions
I haven't met a cool
mammoths,
woman in a long ass fucking time.
mastodons. That's the giant sloth that would have been 8 feet tall.
There's some
so
gems
one
out
of
there.
those
There's some
front
cool
rows
women.
would have, his head would have
For
touched
sure.
the ceiling. There were native horses in
That are,
North
like,
America,
cool
not
shit.
the ones we have today, which were brought by the Spaniards. They were native here. They disappeared at the same time. There were saber-toothed
I'm
cats,
not eating women,
which
but
were
you know what I mean.
probably several times
Yeah,
about the
but
size
bro,
of a
it's
small
like
pony.
it's like it's
This was called a dire
like
wolf. It
needle
was
in a
about
haystack.
twice as large as any wolf today. There were
I don't know how
camels,
you feel
native
about it the
to
other way
North
around.
America,
No, bro,
not
you
the
would
ones that are
totally
reported.
man.
There are a few around today, but they
Man,
actually
men
lived here
are
back
so
then.
fucking.
A
I'm
giant
not hating women,
armadillo
but
that
like,
would have been taller than
I'm
Graham.
quoting Dave Chappelle.
So not like
A
the
man
little
can fuck
ones
a
you see
woman in a
today.
cardboard box. He wouldn't
And
buy her.
bison that would have been nearly 8 feet tall at the back, and they all disappeared. So you can't read it, but there are 4 main ideas that scientists have about what happened to them. So let's look and see how plausible those ideas
No,
are.
it's bullshit.
First is they got too
She's probably
cold.
doing that too because she's a
So
fucking
this
little
is
jealous
what's
petty
called
bitch.
the over-chilled hypothesis. But it really doesn't make any sense because these mammoths had been around for millions of years. They've been through several severe ice ages. They were as colder than the Younger Dryas. So why would they have suddenly dropped dead with this last one? And so that doesn't make any sense. The other one they got was called the mammoth flu. So the idea is that they were susceptible to some kind of pandemic. So, well, you know, that seems reasonable. Animals get pandemics all the time, but does it make sense that a pandemic
Oh,
would
bro,
kill
Scotty, let me
mammoths,
show you my guitar. I'm gonna
mastodons,
show you
giant
because
sloths, horses, camels,
you're a really good
vultures,
guitar player.
narwhals,
I'm
giant
not showing you to
armadillos,
show
all
off.
at the
I'm
same
showing it because
time?
you're a good guitar player.
Just not like
I bought this guitar for
So that's
60
called the
60
overkill
Canadian dollars,
hypothesis.
man. It's pretty sick.
The next one is they got skewered. So this is what Graham was talking about, overkill. You know, the Native
60
Americans
bucks.
killed them off. Well,
Pretty nice,
we
eh?
know they were hunting them.
The strings are
In
nice.
fact, they were quite
It sounds pretty
lethal
good.
hunters.
Sounds
These are
okay.
some of their points there. And
I'm
they
sure
used
in,
what's
in the hands
called,
of a good player it'd
they
be
had
better.
replaceable shafts with their spear
I
points.
think
You can see
the
one over
head,
here.
this thing,
There's the
the
spear
nut
point
or whatever,
coming
it's
down,
pretty good quality, but I might
with
replace
the
it with
tip
bone.
on it. So
Bargain,
here's what
thanks,
they would
man.
do.
Dude, everything in China is so
They
cheap.
would just
I
replace
bought
it
this
like
chair
that. So
for
they'd stab the mammoth, replace it.
No, I bought this
kill
for
them again.
40
So, I mean,
bucks.
that's pretty lethal.
$40,
But
and the
here's
chair
the
was
problem
60.
with the overkill hypothesis. They would every man, woman,
Beautiful.
and child in every tribe,
Oh my
every
God, I
one
know,
of the 10
man.
to 20,000
Dude, China's
people in
amazing.
North America would have had to
It's made of
kill
really shitty
a
wood, though.
dozen mammoths a day to cause their extinction.
It's made of like really like
So
shitty
what
wood,
about all
but
the other animals? I mean, were they eating armadillos? Were they
yeah,
eating
man,
wolves?
this chair was
No.
$60.
By itself, that doesn't make any sense either.
Fucking amazing.
So of course, then we think they got fried by the comet. So
The
and
most
that's
expensive
called
thing I
overkill.
bought is this fucking CRT, man. I paid
So now that's the best
Shit.
explanation. But to be fair, all of the
how much?
other
I
ones,
paid
we think it was
150
really a
Canadian
perfect
for the
storm
CRT,
of
and then shipped. I paid
mean, when you have an
$15.
impact event, you're going to change the climate. That's going to kill some animals. The climate change and other problems are going to cause pandemics.
But it's amazing. Like the
You know
CRT is
that
really amazing.
Clovis people were hunting them already, so we think all 4 of those are not mutually exclusive. They were all in play. but we don't think
The
any
guitar,
of
the
it would
guitar
have
is new.
happened if it weren't for the comet impact, which means that if it hadn't happened, you'd have mammoths eating your vegetables in your backyard and saber-toothed tigers to look out for when you went out for a jog. So we think the comet
I
was
think
the
it has
main
to be
factor,
used.
but
I
all
think
the
it has to be
evidence were in
used.
play too.
Yeah,
Like
I've
it's-
never been persuaded by
It
the
was like made
hypothesis.
like 20 years ago.
Contacts I've had with hunting
It's
animal
really good
groups in the
condition,
world
though.
today, these are people who do not wipe out their food supply. They live in harmonious
I mean, like,
coexistence with their food supply.
where are you
They
gonna find a
would
32-inch
have been the same with hunter-gatherers 12,000
CRT
years ago.
It doesn't make logical sense
in
to
China?
anyone
That's
some
NTSC
scientists.
Who
also.
want to get rid of a
It's not
hypothesis
PAL,
they
it's
don't like.
imported. It's like imported
One of their sort of
NTSC.
supposed killer blows against the Younger Dryas impact
It could be
hypothesis
both,
is the
actually.
absence of a crater.
Could be NTSC
And they keep
and
bringing this up. There's no
PAL,
crater. What are
because
these
it's a
guys
newer
talking
one.
about?
It's like,
Put that to
it might
rest.
be made in the year 2000, maybe?
You know, one is, as Graham pointed out, when you have a lot of small objects sitting around, they're not likely to leave craters, just like a big one would. The one that caused the dinosaur extinction was one single huge object, so we think there were tens of thousands of small objects, so they're not going to leave much evidence behind.
Yeah, China's
But there is
usually
some possible
PAL for
evidence.
CRTs.
And this is
Like
what
the
the ice
old
sheet
school
looked
ones?
like about 13,000 years ago. You can see almost all
Yeah.
of Canada was covered. It went into
This
the
might
Great
use
Lakes
both,
region.
which would be
covered all of the
amazing, because
Great
if I
Lakes,
ever get like a
parts of
PAL
Michigan.
setup,
There was a 2-mile
I gotta
high
Google
ice ridge
see if this
right
plays
across
both.
the middle of
It might.
Canada there. So now look what's happened just a few hundred years later. It's gone. And in its place is Hudson Bay, which you know, you probably all of you know today, huge inland sea in Canada. There's no evidence that Hudson Bay existed prior to this ice age. So
Yeah, man, I
what we've
think
been
just,
looking at
like
is
the
this
guitar,
possibility. This is
everything
what's
is
called a
made here in
bafflement
China, right?
profile.
So it's,
They used
shit is so cheap.
you know, sonar to look at the bottom of Hudson Bay, and there's this.
That's why I'm able to buy all this
250
new
mile
stuff.
long
Like, I'm not rich, man.
with
I'm
what
fucking,
looks like an impact.
I'm in bad
rim around
financial
it,
shape,
which
but
is exactly what
this
you
shit
get in
is like
craters.
cheap.
Big hole in the ground, kicks up a rim around the outside that's raised. Now, is that a crater? We really don't know. But this year, one of the things we want to do is we want to find out. So they've extracted a lot of cores out of Hudson Bay, and we think there might be evidence for a comet impact in it. We don't know, but we're going to find out. But that's what science is about. You come up with a hypothesis. We think that could be a crater. Now you've got to prove it.
Yeah, the CRT was delivered to my door. This is amazing.
If this happened today, we understand that a single
And I found the Chinese at
might
Amazon,
destroy a city. Tunguska would certainly
right, to
destroy
order
a city.
everything online.
But it wouldn't have much effect on the rest of the world. What would happen if we had something like
No,
the Younger Dryas debris
I still
shower?
have everything back at my
Today.
parents' house.
Well, it'd be bad, but let me.
I was living at my
Let me
parents'
go
house
to,
for like 5 years.
Let me kind of lead into that. So the question is, why are
The
some
house I grew up in.
critics so opposed to what we're doing? And to be fair, it's only a few. You know, we give.
No, man, the money I'm using now is
There are
the
more than
money I
100
made
scientists in the group,
in
15
March
countries, 55 universities.
when I
We
was
give
in
talks all the time, and
teaching
by
in
and large,
Zhengzhou,
they're
Zhengzhou
like
University.
you know,
Aeronautics.
they're receptive to it.
In China,
And
you
I'm
will
sure
find-
all of you aren't necessarily convinced that this happened, frankly.
So I have
I'm not
some
convinced that
spending
we know
money
exactly
because of
what
that
happened
job.
either, but we want to find out. But the interesting thing is, question is, how did it start? That
Everything's
there
so
was a
cheap here.
small group of these just virulent critics that we have, and we think this guy's to blame.
Yeah.
The man in black, right? You heard of him? Actually, it started with the government, and one of our key scientists was high up in NASA for 20 years. He was a NASA section chief, and he told me that back in the in the 80s, when they first
Oh, bro,
discovered
the
the
food
big
here is so terrible, man.
impact in the Yucatan,
Dude,
the government knew that
Chinese
they couldn't
food
do
is
anything about it.
absolutely
And they
terrible
were
in
starting
China.
to get worried calls from their constituents that,
It's so
what
bad.
can we do
It's
about
so
this?
bad.
We gotta do something
It's the
about it.
worst.
We gotta stop it.
It's definitely the worst food
So what they decided
I've
to
had
do was to just pretend
anywhere
that it
in
wasn't
like
real.
in my travels in the world. It's
They
just
had the public
abysmal.
fears about the
They don't- they
impact.
have no idea what the
decided
fuck
to
they're
just
doing.
deny,
Like,
deny,
it's just,
deny.
like-
Just say, don't worry, there's no problem. We've got it
Way too
under
much
control.
oil.
And they
The
didn't.
oil is like
And he
ridiculous.
said the problem was that there were
It's not like Western
some
Chinese food.
small
Western
group of
Chinese
people,
food is amazing.
mostly in the government, that
Fucking
knew they were
Chinese
lying
Chinese
about
food
it.
is
But
the
then
worst.
it became the doctrine.
The
It
absolute
got out
worst.
there, people began to
Yeah.
believe it.
Oh, 100.
People
I
down the
probably
line said,
definitely.
and most, to be honest
Man.
with you, most of
Sometimes
our
you go
critics
by these,
either
like,
work
you know
or
the
they
wheel
work for
stands that have like the
government
barbecue
organizations
shit.
that depend
Oh,
on
like these, like,
NASA for
rickshaw
their
shit?
funding or for their
Dude,
research facilities.
the smell
And
is
so
so bad.
His thought
Like,
was
they
that
definitely
it
use- I'm
became this
sure they use gutter
institutional
oil.
position
Like, it's just so
that there was
terrible.
no danger from these
If
things.
you go to like a
and just
fancy
tell people
restaurant,
don't worry
it's a little
because
better.
they couldn't
You
stand
gotta
the
pay,
truth,
you
so
gotta
don't tell
pay a
them.
little money. If you go to fancy
So-
restaurants, it's actually
So I
pretty
think
good.
that's how, now to
It's
be
not, like,
honest, it's gotten
amazing.
better, but let's just see how much.
Like, compared to-
So
no,
Trump
compared to, like,
destroys
Europe,
every year.
Or even
The
compared to like
budget is
Brazil, man.
150 million to
Bro.
look for them, and they put
I
up a
don't,
few
dude,
satellites to
I
try
don't,
and
I
see when
haven't,
they're coming.
I don't need, I try to
But
eat, I don't eat
compare
out at
that
all.
to this one submarine,
At
nuclear
all.
submarine,
McDonald's, there's
3,000
there's
million,
McDonald's
or
here,
$3 billion,
which is amazing.
150
There's a
billion
KFC,
versus
which is
3
pretty good.
billion. There's something
There
wrong with
is
this picture.
a,
So, now, I think if
there's a
if
Pizza Hut, which is
NASA
pretty good.
suddenly saw that there was a
And
comet
there's a
coming in that
Domino's,
was going
which
to
I
hit
haven't
one of the
tried yet.
nuclear submarines, and they'd probably be more interested
But
in
yeah,
spending
bro,
money,
Chinese,
but
man,
at the moment they aren't.
it's just so terrible. And you know they use the word, like, and you,
But the question
and they
is,
use like,
if
and you know
just
they use
hypothetically,
like tap water.
if something like
There's no
the
way they're not
Antarctica
using,
impact
they're
event
not
were to
using
happen
bottled
today,
water, they're not.
what
To cook,
not a massive
they're
big
definitely
impact
using like
that would
shitty tap water and it's
threaten
just,
all
it's the
life on
worst.
Earth,
It's the
but,
worst.
but a series of airbursts, as you're proposing 12,800
Sorry,
years
man.
ago, what would be the consequences for
I
our
really hate
civilization?
Chinese
Then
food.
let's exactly, you've
Like,
shown what
I was
happened
thinking
during
today,
the
why
underclass,
can't, you
and
know,
some animations too of a lot of these small objects hitting.
have
Now,
you been to
that was
like
a big
Italy or
event,
Greece
but
or
let's say
somewhere,
that we had
like
a
Spain?
smaller one,
The
what
food
would
is just
happen?
like amazing.
And it doesn't look good for our
When you come to fucking
technological
China, the
society.
food is so
They could
bad,
take out
like,
our
it's
communication
so bad.
satellites, no cell service.
No, it's
They
not,
came
man.
in multiple
Not even
airbursts
close,
like
man.
that would
I
would
wish.
fry transformers, overload
I
the
wish,
grid,
man.
burn out the transmission lines.
But it's okay. I'm cooking. I cook a lot. I like to cook.
No TV.
I cook a lot. I cook
no
big
internet.
meals. I cook and I put it in the fridge.
Oops.
I'm eating like
So
steak
our
every
entire
day.
civilization would go dark. Well,
Or
that's
like
not
cut up
good.
steak, right?
And that would be for a relatively small one.
I
Now,
found a
to
grocery
be
store which
fair,
has
that's
pretty
not
good
likely to
price.
happen tomorrow,
steak
but
and
the
beef.
odds are above zero.
So I'm cooking.
In
I'm
fact, they
eating
think
really
that
well at home.
Tunguska-like events might happen every few hundred years.
No, dude, the
But
restaurants
then they're more likely to
Sorry, I
happen
don't
over
wanna
the
be
world's
negative.
oceans, but they could happen over
They're
the
so,
city.
it's,
And
man,
so we really need to do something
it's like,
about them.
it's like,
And it doesn't
That's
look like
fine.
our government is very motivated to do that. They more likely build nuclear submarines than to do what they need to do to fix these things that are coming out of space. And the bad news is they know
yeah,
where the
man,
big
gutter
ones
oil.
are.
I'm sure
But
they
they
use
don't
gutter
know
oil,
where the
I'm
ones
sure.
are that are as wide as this
100%.
auditorium. They only know a small percentage of it.
The
The trouble
they use
is
the
they
shittiest
often
ingredients.
don't see them
They use
coming
the smallest
until
amount
they're
of meat.
gone. In other words, they pass between us and the moon and they say, oops, there it went. Well, that's not very good. So it's something to worry about, but the thing is, we can
What
do
the
something about it.
fuck?
They
Yo,
can put up
this
satellites
game, man.
and look at
Like,
the
what
entire
the
sky.
fuck?
They can see these coming. There's some remediation policies that they already
Like,
know
where's
about
even
they
the
could
second
do.
gun? Like,
But
where?
are they going to do it?
Did I
I'm
use the
afraid
ammo?
that's not likely.
I can't remember.
So-
Oh, right there? Like, fuck you.
We've got this background of virulent, extremely hostile, very personalized criticism of the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, and yet you continue to present new evidence and build your
I
case
don't know
stronger
who
and
that is.
stronger. How long do you think it'll be before the YDIH actually is world?
Is he a guy in China?
Yeah, I wish I knew, but might not
I'm
be
gonna
in my
say
lifetime,
yes.
might be the next generation.
Even though I don't even know who he is or
The
what he says,
paradigm
I'm
shifting
gonna say yeah,
ideas
probably.
can take 30, 40, 50 years to finally make it into the mainstream. The old idea of science advances one funeral at a time, so our critics have to die off before it does. But we're really making progress.
No, man, it's,
And
bro,
in the
it's
last
so
5
bad.
years, our papers have been read by 1.5 million people in 204 countries. Our critics, they've been read by a few thousand people, mostly in the United States, mostly their friends. So when you look at that, we're making progress, but it's slow.
But I learned that last
I
time.
will say that one of the major reasons we've been able to do that is because of donations from people.
Last time I was here, I learned that I made that
have
error.
donated to help us do this.
Trusting Chinese food, and this time I'm
And
like,
that's
I
been
know it's
essential.
all
And one of those
just dog
people
shit.
is Graham.
You
He's
claims to
donated
give a realistic view of
from his
China. Yeah.
personal to do that. Another is
I
guy
mean,
sitting
it's
in the front
like-
row here named Eugene. He came to, he heard
I
Graham talk
understand
sometime,
that
and these two
they're
are
not
part
rich.
of our angel donors.
A lot
we
of people
call
in
them,
China are definitely
because
not
we can't
rich,
get money from the
right?
government. So we've really depended
A lot of struggling
on
financially.
donations. We have a
So I
lot of people
understand
who
that
donate
they're kind of
$1
forced
month
to
after
not
month, $5, $10. They're just as
use,
valuable to us
like
as the big
expensive
donors
meat and
because
stuff.
they all
Like
add up.
I
You
can
get thousands of them.
understand that maybe.
So altogether,
But man, like
so yeah, let's give a hand for
just the
Graham
quality of the
and
shit
for
and the
Eugene
oil
here.
they use is just so terrible.
And quite likely some of you might be donors too. We've been doing this for a few years.
But it's fine.
And we take good care of your money if you do donate. We don't take
I'm
any
eating really
salaries
well here by
ourselves.
cooking
Every
myself.
single bit goes to pay for
But I
these
like to cook. I like
expensive
to cook a lot.
microscopes. The electron
I cook a
microscopes,
lot.
some
I'm
of the
happy- I'm
images
so
that
happy
you saw
cooking
were
again.
taken
Oh my
with
God.
equipment that costs us nearly $300 an hour to rent. So we have to pay for that out of donations.
Yeah.
So we're getting it done. It's slow and steady, but
I didn't believe in the gutter oil shit until I smelled some of
almost
the
nobody knew
stands
about
here, and it's like,
the
yeah.
Younger Dryas
And the
hypothesis.
water?
That's changed now because of his books, because of his talks, just like this one.
can't drink
Thousands
tap
and
water
thousands
here,
of
right?
people across the
They
planet
don't-
know about it who
they
did
don't
not know
feed it?
about it before. Now, and we've always thought that this
Yeah.
would have to be kind of a groundswell movement.
All right, we might
that-
put it on after
that
this.
People pressure governments to do things. Government
Talk
generally
me.
don't do them unless they
Might
pressure
change my mind,
people.
but
Unless they want to pay their
Okay.
billion-dollar donors and for their pay them back. But at
awesome.
any rate, so we're making progress.
Definitely. So there's just a couple of short questions left.
You're awesome.
Absurd. Your critics claim that
Come
everything
on, man.
about the Dryas impact hypothesis is wrong.
No, dude, Chinese
Do you think
food, bro.
any
Unless
of
you
it
go to like
actually might be
really
wrong?
nice restaurants,
If the critics
but then it's
ask us, or
expensive
even
and then it's all
reviewers,
fancy
or just
and
like
it's
Graham
all
ask us that,
bullshit.
we'll be the first to admit that we don't know everything about this. You've probably heard the old story. They asked three
No.
blind men to describe an elephant. So the first one grabs the trunk, says, "Oh, it's like a fire
Last
hose."
year,
The
there's a
next one
Canadian
grabs
guy,
the leg and says, "Nope, it's like a tree."
like a white,
The third one grabs
English
the tail and says, "It's like a
Canadian
rope."
guy.
Well, we're at that stage. We really
And
don't know how to describe this elephant of an
He
impact.
told
And there are a
people
lot of things that we
that
don't know about it.
he didn't eat
And as
pork
Graham
because
talked
of his
about too,
religion.
it's entirely possible that this
And he
huge
said
comet that
and
came
because
in
he
went
said
on
that
and
like most
smacked
people they
into
don't
the
know
sun.
they
If it
cook
does
with
that,
pork
there's
and
a
then they
massive
sometimes like
solar
use the same
eruption
dish to
that
cook
comes out.
pork or
If
whatever.
that was aimed
I
towards
swear
Earth,
it's
we
because he
could've-
just fucking hates the food here.
we could have
And he just
gotten
wanted to
hit
be a
with
nice
what
guy
we call
and, like,
CME,
not an asshole.
coronal mass ejection. So also there could have been
Yo,
just other
Mike,
things
thanks,
at the
man.
same
Thank you,
time. A
brother.
supernova
Thank
went
you,
off
brother.
at the
Thank
same
you, man.
time. Well, they
My
tend to
mic
bathe
is
nearby
arriving.
stars
Thank you,
with
Mike.
deadly
Thank you, bro.
radiation. So
My mic is
and
arriving
what they
in a
do
couple
is
days.
even though they don't put out a lot
I
of
know my mic
pressure,
sounds
they
like
put
shit
out
right now.
a wave that goes through
Thank you,
space.
dude.
And even though it's subtle, it's enough to very
Thanks, bro.
gently kick
That's nice of you, man.
comets out of their orbit. So what happens when there's
Trying to go lower
supernovae?
now.
There are often extinctions tied into them, and so
We're having
we
terrible
think that
starts.
maybe a
We're having
supernova went
absolute.
off, pushed the comet in that hit the
Thanks, man.
Earth. So there's more than one thing
Thank
that
you,
it
brother.
could
How are
be.
you? Hope you're good.
And actually, because of the funding that we've been getting, we're actually looking in ocean cores for evidence of
Our
supernovae,
consistency is dog
evidence
shit.
for coronal mass ejections, for
Yo,
evidence of other things
yeah.
that could have happened at the
Hell
same
yeah.
time. We're pretty certain
Fuck
there was
yeah,
an
man.
impact. That part we're clear about. But even then, we don't necessarily know what
It's just
it was.
persistence,
or where
man.
it
That's
came
all it
from.
is. It's not really
There are certain objects that'll come in
skill,
from
it's
deep
just
space.
persistence.
I don't know
Thanks,
if you
man.
saw this. There was this object called Oumuamua that came through. It was a spindle-like object that shot through the solar system. It
I
came
guess
from
the
deep
skill,
space,
I think the
shot through our solar
skill is
system, and kept right on going.
persistence.
Well, who knows? It could
If
have been an object
persistence
like
is a
that.
skill,
So that's one of the things we're looking for
It's
in these
more
ocean
true.
cores too. Is there evidence that whatever this comet was maybe was from deep space? It wasn't from our system at all. So we'll be the first to admit
Thanks,
we
man.
don't
That's
have
nice
all
of
the
you.
answers, but
Thanks, dude.
we're looking for them. And in spite of the critics, we plan to keep publishing what we find.
So your critics, this is the last question really. Your critics are very noisy. They do
Thinking
seem to
of
have
trying
mastered
some
social
no body
media
armor
quite
runs,
effectively
some,
to make this a
some great
multi-pronged
endings.
attack on you.
I'm not getting any runs.
Listening to their noise, you would get the impression that there's a
Oh.
lot of them. Are there actually a lot of them? How many people are we dealing with who really want to stick the knife into the Younger Dryas
I might try some
hypothesis?
force
Well,
stuff.
there are what we call the loudmouth
No body
critics
armor
and the
runs.
quiet critics.
See how it goes.
The loudmouth ones like to do it on social media, but then once
I also
again,
might try some bunker one
you're
escape
all
today.
know about social media. One of the things is you want to know whether how important something is. You look at how often it's shared, how often it's liked. Well, we look at the criticism we get of the Younger Dryas, and generally there are maybe 10 or 20 likes or shares. So when we put things out, it's considerably more than that. The same with Graham. When he puts something on his Facebook page, he gets a lot of likes and shares. Well, that tells you how popular it is. So I think our critics are very vocal, and unfortunately, they do have a fair amount of sway. You know, they're keeping a lot of our papers from getting accepted. We get things like a reviewer says, this journal should not publish its paper in a million years. It's just pseudoscience. There's nothing to it. It's all made up and bogus. Well, then the editors look at that and they reject the paper. So that's why several years ago
Yeah, I
we
mean,
set up our own journal. So
yeah, I think
okay, you're gonna close this door.
skilled
go
players
around
can
and just do it anyway. So they're
definitely
not having
improve
much effect. You know,
consistency.
they had more effect. At
And,
one point, we had one paper that was rejected by 6 different journals, one after the other. And we finally said, that's enough. We set up our own journal. We published it in our own journal. We followed all of the same rigor that journals follow. We had it peer reviewed by experts. We
and just
listened
like
to what
make
they
the
said.
best
We
of
changed
bad
it.
situations,
and we
right? They
published it,
adapt and
and
better
lots of
too,
people
and
were
just
reading
even
it.
their lines are better, and
Well,
lines
congratulations
are
on
pretty
the work
shit
that the
still.
Comet Research Group is doing.
I'm not gonna lie.
I think
Even my terms and shit and
I think it's
presses.
incredibly important work, and I would urge everybody, keep your eyes and your
Not
ears
very
open
good.
for
Because
future
they're
developments
fucking
with the
watching
Comet Research Group.
Kratos.
And
Kratos is
there are
just like
many
locked in.
projects in the world today that deserve
He's just
support,
clean,
but the
he's
Comet
clean,
Research
he's
Group
very
is
clean.
definitely one of them, because
I'm
what
not
they're
clean,
looking
he's very
at
dirty.
has implications for the whole of life on Earth, for all of our futures and the children in the future as well. So thank you.
Alright, let's put on this video of Bobby's. Oh, dude, I don't know if I want to watch this, man. Dude, I can't. I can't watch this shit, dude. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm sorry, man. I'm gonna bookmark it though. I'm gonna bookmark it for science. There's no fucking way, dude. can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it, Scotty. I'm sorry, man. Maybe after another few beers, but dude, I can't.
Hey everyone, this is Adam Ellenboss from Nightlight Astrology. Today I am very excited to introduce you to a new panel of co-hosts for our monthly overview. We're going to be looking at all of the astrology for the month of August, and I have 4 amazing new co-hosts to introduce you to. I'm going to be saying more about how formatting will work. We're trying on some new ways of formatting our monthly overview as well, but a lot of good astrology to look at this month, and I'm very excited to do that for you today. So that's our agenda for today. As always, before we get into this monthly overview, remember to like and subscribe. Share your comments and reflections if you have them. We love hearing from you. I am also going to take you over the website for a couple of brief promotions. Here we go. I've got lots of new things I'm working with today on the screen, so give me just a second. Okay, there we go. So you head over to the website, and pretty soon on the events page, I'm going to be talking about this more next week. We are offering our first immersive training experience in a retreat setting. We're going to be going to Mexico in June of 2026, and we're going to be doing a full week immersive course, brand new course from Nightlight. Really excited about it. I'll be telling you more about that next week. The sale for the course, the retreat will go middle of August. That'll be on sale, and it's our first retreat since 2014. I'm really super excited about it, and I'll be telling you more about that next week. Go to the live talks. You'll see the other upcoming event on August 14th. I'm doing a talk on the 7th house, which is the place of love, marriage, relationships. It's also a house that's tied to the meaning of the setting sun. We're going to talk about this house, how you can understand it in your birth chart, which is always a very popular topic because everyone wants to know about love. So check that one out. When you register for that talk, if you can't attend live, you get the link to watch later. You always get the recordings for talks that you attend at Nightlight. So, all right, on that note, I'm very excited to introduce you to our new panelists. Welcome them on. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi.
Hey, excellent. I'm so glad you're all here. I can't wait to introduce all of you. We're gonna take time so you can meet each of our panelists today before we get into your content for the month. I want to say a big thank you to several hundred people who applied for a very limited number of positions as creative content contributors to the channel. All of our applicants came through our programs, students of our programs, in some cases alumni of our programs, and there was just a huge amount of talent, an embarrassment of riches talent-wise. Something we're really conscious of is trying to make sure that the kinds of people that you see and interact with on the channel represent the best talent that comes through our programs, as well as representing the diversity of our audience. And I'm really proud of that this year because we had a really diverse applicant pool, as well as a huge amount of talent to choose from, and that's really special, I think. I think that speaks to the openness of the Nightlight community, and as well as the amazing intelligence of the kinds of people that are coming through our programs. That means a lot to me. Anyway, all of these panelists are just amazing. You got to meet our horoscope panelists as well this week. Can't wait for you to meet them. But Courtney, Shirzad, Tim, and Bianca, very excited for you all to be here. Before we get into it, I want to tell you a little bit about the formatting, and then I'd like each of our new contributors to be able to introduce themselves for a moment. The new formatting is, we're just kind of playing with a new format for the year. We're breaking the month up transit-wise and assigning different delineation sections, you might say, to each of our panelists. So this way, Courtney's going to have a certain section of the month that she speaks about Bianca, another Tim and Shirazad, another. And the idea behind this is that everyone can kind of spread their wings a little bit within a segment of the month creatively. And then I'll offer feedback on all of the sections as we go, and everyone else may jump in as well. So it'll be a little bit popcorn styled. We also have some ability to let each person kind of creatively focus in their prep work, which I think is really important. Sometimes it's hard to be as in-depth creatively if you're given the whole month, so that's something that I feel like we learned over the past year. By the way, for those of you who really loved Alexandra and Whitney in the monthly overview, what we're doing now every year as we bring in new contributors once yearly, we'll do so again next summer,
like you go to Italy,
will be that the previous year's contributors will be making bonus
Italy
content
has such
for
good
weekends
food.
throughout the months of the year
Anywhere you go
to
in
follow.
Italy, the food
And
is
that
just
really
amazing.
gives the content creators 2 years
Even
to
like
work on building their
Japan.
creative platform and their
Even
abilities
Japan has,
as
like, good
content
food.
creators and astrologers. So you
Fucking
will still see
China's
Whitney and
dog
Alexandra, Alex, and Dina creating some bonus content starting in August, September. You'll start seeing them appear
Literally.
on the weekends with some fun bonus episodes for all of you. And then this crew, a year from now, they'll take over those duties. And in that way, I think we have a stream of people who are using this platform to build and grow. And that's at the heart of what I care about as an astrologer. Let's see a lot of people grow through this community. Anyway, on that note, I'd love to introduce you guys just briefly. Maybe we'll just go around the circle here, starting with Courtney and then Shirazad, Tim, Bianca.
Europe has such good food.
Just tell us a little bit about yourself
Europe's amazing.
and how'd you get into astrology? What are you up to? Yeah, just
The
give
food
us a
in
little
Europe
intro.
is every meal I have in Europe is like
Hey
life changing.
everybody, my name is
it makes me
Courtney, and
reconsider
I'm a
everything in my
writer,
life.
I'm
Even
a
like Prague,
rewilder, and
even like
also an
Eastern
astrologer.
Europe.
And I got into astrology, it's kind of something that's always been at the background,
And like Greece,
something that I've been interested in.
Spain,
But then when I
Portugal.
found the Nightlight channel, something clicked.
So good.
And so I was listening to the podcast for years before enrolling in the programs, and it's just kind of been like a launch pad
England,
since
I'll be
then.
honest,
So,
England's a little,
that's
England
the,
has some
like,
good
short
stuff.
version
England
of
has
the
some good
story
stuff,
for
but
me.
like
What is rewilding, Courtney?
England's a little.
Rewilding is it's a really interesting term because it's a word that sprouted up
England's
in
no
multiple
Italy,
places
so
around the
let me
same
just say
time
that.
period. But for me, it's a process of reintegration with our wild roots in nature. It's like a physical process, kind of letting things be a little bit more, like it's kind of Taoist in that way. But it's also a spiritual
In
practice.
Ireland, dude,
It's
the food in
observation
Ireland
over
sucks.
manipulation. Or
Ireland
both
sucks.
observation
Ireland's
and
a
then
shitty place.
manipulation.
Ireland really fucking sucks.
I love that. Such a nice, there's just so much, there's such a natural connection between animistic connections with nature and the cosmos and ancient astrology, I think. So I love that piece of your background. Really cool.
Ireland
And I
might
can't
be
wait
my
for all
like
of you to get to know
least
Courtney,
favorite
obviously
place.
through the content every month,
I mean,
but
I'm
also
blessed.
follow.
I'm really
I'm going to
blessed
tell
to have
you
the
how you
opportunity
can
to
follow
have
all
gone
these
there, but man,
contributors
it really fucking
going
sucks
forward. Shirazad.
Hi everyone, my name is Shahrzad and I am a student of Nightlight, and I always say that studying with Nightlight I'm not saying this because Adam is here, I always say that studying at Nightlight was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. It really changed everything for me, studying with such a great school, with such a great teacher. My story with astrology started, it was very random. I randomly came across an astrologer and I had a reading, and that changed my life forever. And I am a Persian woman, and I always say that I am a biological
AI
child
is
of
so
Iran,
useless,
and I
man.
am an
AI
adopted
is-
child of Canada, and I'm very
AI is
happy to be
retarded.
here.
Sorry, AI is dumb.
Thank you.
Dumb
You
as
say your
fuck.
name for us one more time because I know I'm personally still working on pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah, it's Shahrazad, but Shahrazad you pronounce it very good.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah.
All right, hey everyone. My name is Tim Paulden. I'm out of Chicago. I got into astrology. I've been studying astrology now for about 3.5, almost 4 years. I started out, I'll just say it, Cap Sun. I'm a rising Gemini. Mercury is just like all over my chart, and so like I like to dig deep. I love psychology, I love personal
Yeah.
growth and development, and just like my hunger for more and more led me through,
Yeah, they definitely
Carl
probably do
Jung
that.
and
Yeah.
Tony Robbins, and then I started learning the commonality into like metaphysical sciences, and like the commonality among all of them was astrology.
Yeah,
And
China's pretty
I looked
tough,
for
man.
something just like something formal to like really
It's
try
really
to
fucked.
learn some spiritual sciences, and then I stumbled upon Adam's channel, and it was the most creatively organized I'd ever seen astrology. Like, it was like, this is how you could delineate, but there's a million ways to turn the jewel. And I found that was so
Dude, at the
grounding in like
grocery
all of
store,
my
fucking,
practices.
they
So
had,
joined Nightlight, went through year one, year
they
two,
had turtles,
about to jump
they
into
had
Warrior,
frogs,
and
and
just like
live
never look back. It's
in
just,
an aquarium.
it's been great, and here I am.
They had
So
all
I'm
these
super excited to be here.
frogs, they had all these
I
turtles.
love
they
that,
had all
and
these
I have to say, like
eels.
watching so many auditions,
Man,
I
it
was
was
just,
fucked, man.
I was
It was
like,
really
wow, there's
fucked.
such talented people, and I know all of you are going to find all of these panelists super talented, but when your audition came through,
I'm
your
making a movie.
Mercury or your
Well,
Hermes Gemini
it's-
qualities
well,
like
I mean,
shown out. So
I don't know
I know
what they did
everyone's
with the
gonna love
homeless,
that.
but yeah,
Thank
there's
you.
like no homeless people. There's a lot of apartments.
Bianca.
There's a lot of housing. There's a lot of like
Hi,
empty apartments.
my name is Bianca. I'm from New Zealand. I'm so excited
I
and
think
happy
people
to
are
be
able to
here.
find
So
work, I
it's
think.
such an honor and
They're not
privilege
really
to be
like
on your
free,
channel,
they can't
Adam.
really like
So
leave the country
I got into
unless
astrology.
they have,
I've always been into astrology, but it was just that like
I don't know, like
sun
money
sign
or
type
whatever.
of astrology, and I'm Cancer sun, so like all into
Oh,
all into
wow.
this like divination and
Yeah,
spirituality.
if you're
and
like a bum on the street,
so, and then
harassing
I
people.
started feeling like I needed to take this more seriously, and it was
Yeah,
a
you
couple of
can't do
years
that
ago.
here.
I had been following your channel
But
for a
people aren't
while
happy,
and was
right?
really
It's communism.
impressed by
People are happy,
just
but
the,
I mean,
the,
they're
the level of detail that you
poor
go
and
into, and the way you explain things is really
some people are
intriguing and
poor.
captivating to me. And
Some
I was
people are
like,
rich as
I
fuck.
need to learn from this guy. So you were doing your
A lot of rich
promotion for
people.
year one, and I was like,
A
right,
lot
like
of
I'm sold, I'm in.
foreign
So
business.
done year one, year
A
two,
lot of exporting
quarry.
shit.
And I'm
A lot of
just,
really rich
yeah, I
cars
love
too.
the nightlight community and have made some long lasting friendships through your classes, Adam. So if you're thinking about studying with Adam and the Nightlight School, I highly recommend it.
Oh, thank you, Bianca.
Yeah, you
I
can't be like a
love
bum
that. By the way, Bianca's asked to join us from
in
like
public.
a radically different time
You
zone.
can be a bum,
What
you can
time
hide
is
out
it for you
in,
right
there's
now?
so many like mountains and shit.
It's almost 4 a.m., but
Like hills.
That's crazy.
You can
That's crazy.
but
live in small
yeah,
villages and shit.
it'll be manageable
You
in the
can't be like
future.
a bum in the
Anyway, but
street.
I'm used to waking up early because I used to love joining live your classes, and they're usually around this time anyway. So it's almost kind of like a continuation of that habit of that routine.
Well,
Yeah.
we're also going to try to adapt some of our recording times to make sure that you can sleep a little bit more too.
I'm committed.
Yeah. Oh, we love it. That's amazing. Well, welcome all of you, and again, I can't wait for all of you to see them in action. On that note, a little bit about August in overview. I'm going to say a few things, then we're going to get rolling. I'm going to hand it over to these special folks, and they're going to take you on a ride through the month. But I think there are some really interesting sequences. For sure, we're on the brink of eclipse season. So by the new moon in Virgo later in the month, we're going right into the eclipse windows that'll take us into September. We're not quite there, but like late August, we start ramping things up for eclipses again. There are some very powerful aspects from Venus at the start and close of the month. Squaring Saturn and Neptune at the beginning, and at the end there's a series of trine sextiles and an opposition to Pluto. So Venus has bookends the month in a really fascinating way. In the middle of the month, Venus is also joining with Jupiter, the great
Oh wow, no, I
benefic
did not.
Jupiter exalted in Cancer.
Who's
that
that
connection
Mr.
to
Pierce
the
Farmer
benefics
or
will
whatever that shit?
recur next June. while we're on our first ever night.
Yeah, but I think again, bro, I think it's.
The Venus conjunction to Jupiter. A lot of astrologers have highlighted that
I think they're just trying to
conjunction of
create
benefics as possibly one of the
support for
subjectively
Trump
more
for
exciting
the destruction
positive
of
transits
Gaza.
of the year. So that's in the middle of August.
And I think they're just trying to implement trade
There's
wars
some interesting sequences from Mars
make
getting into Libra,
everyone poorer
trining Uranus,
worldwide.
opposing Saturn, opposing
I think
Neptune,
nationalism is like the
trining
new
Pluto.
psyop.
So
Yeah.
a bunch of powerful
Yeah,
Mars
I think we're on the
aspects we're
same
going to look
page.
at
I know what
today.
you mean. Kirsten
There's a sun
definitely
square to
fucking
Uranus in the
deserves it,
mix
but
this month as
I think
well
nationalism is
as that new moon in
the next
Virgo,
psyop.
full moon in Aquarius this month. So lots
Having everyone
to
just
talk
pay
about. I
higher
think probably
taxes,
the headline
you know,
for the
fucking
month
reason.
is I would say the
For
Venus
ego.
Jupiter conjunction in Cancer. That conjunction I've looked at
But you know
recently,
my stance. I
going
think
back,
Donald Trump
and
should fake
probably
being
later in
assassinated.
August, I'll take you back into
He
some
faked it.
previous times when those two planets met up,
He's
because when I
completely
tracked them in my
compromised.
own life, I found that really interesting.
He's just a
I'm not going
boomer
to say a whole
now,
lot more
fucking-
other than to just kind of
So
topically
he's always
survey
been a
like I just
sellout,
did.
but I
So
mean,
let's get right into it. We're going
he's
to
old
start
and
at the beginning
he's
of
just
the
like,
month.
fine,
And
it's
Yang is
Jewish,
going to talk with us
fucking
about some of the
Mossad
most
wants to
powerful
make me
transits
do
that
all this
start the
bullshit
month. On the
so
1st
that I
of
can
August, Venus is going to square Saturn. On the 2nd of
rebuild
August, Venus will
Gaza,
square
like the new
Neptune.
Israel.
They're basically taking place. You're listening to this
Right, remember he
the
shared that
31st.
video
This
of
is taking place tomorrow into
the
Saturn.
weird
So
people,
this really is
the
like
bearded
right out the gates.
men
These are the two
dancing
transits that
in
start
New
our month.
Gaza and the Trump
Bingo, what do you
building in
think about these?
Gaza.
What did you get up to creatively thinking about these transits?
Yeah, so
Next
I
question,
first
throw
started out by just
here and really
looking
went
at
on in on
Venus,
it, yeah.
what she's doing at the beginning of the month, just
Yeah.
ingressing into Cancer,
Bro,
Cancer,
Europe's
Sun,
in
and
bad
Moon here.
shape,
So
man.
I was
The
like, oh my god, and
political
Jupiter
fucking
present, well, Jupiter transiting at the moment, and I just
scene
thought,
in Europe is
what
terrible
is,
shape, man.
firstly, what is Venus? The Venus is the archetype of
It's
love
fucking
and to be
England
loved, and she
man.
is. She brings
I think we
pleasure
should
to
pass
others,
Australia in
and
terms of
it's
fucking
our
crown
capacity
world.
to enjoy
It's a battle
ourselves
between
and,
England,
and,
Australia,
and
and Canada
harmonize with
right
other
now.
people.
That's the most ridiculous country
And
in the world.
so at first I'm like,
Canada's
first I
fucking almost
started out by
there,
just
though,
looking
man.
at Venus in Cancer and the ingress just on that alone. And then also
bad,
I was looking
man.
at the
The West
phases
is
of
ridiculous.
her
Like,
of her
it's just a fucking
synodic
shit
cycle with the
show.
sun. And I was like, wow, this is a powerful Venus. This is a warrior maiden morning star Venus. She's like Inanna rising from the underworld, emerging with power. She's like this young, yang type of Venus in her active, assertive phase. So she's the initiator, blazing forward with a purpose, like in pursuit of love rather than
Yeah, good
waiting
point,
to
man. That's
receive
actually
it.
a really good point.
And I was just imagining this is not a soft Venus in her
Yeah, at this
expression.
point, just like vocabulary
She's ready
is
to
just
go
semantics
to
right now.
co-create, harmonize
That's a
with
really good
courage
point.
and passion. So that in itself, for me, was quite striking. And then I started thinking, okay, so what would that look like to me? To me, it seemed
Dude,
it's
it's like
like it looks like
1984, man.
someone who is pioneering a new
A fake
expression
war
of
between
love,
Europe
possibly,
and like North America.
exercising relational bravery.
We're
That's
literally
that
entering
Cancer
1984.
watery
It's literally
piece to it,
the-
and having the
exactly
capacity
the
to be
1984
more
playbook.
open and vulnerable. There's more courage to go deep with your
We're
feelings
fucked.
and opening up in ways you may have been too shy to, or too timid or scared to do before. And I also looked at the host for those first 2 days in August. And the host of Cancer, the host being the moon, is transiting through Scorpio. So I feel like Venus is off to a little bit of a rocky start, but it's a statement, it's powerful in my opinion, and
I'm
then
just
I'm
so
like,
fucking
okay, now the
shitty at this
squares to
fucking
Saturn
moon.
in Aries. And when I think, okay, what does it look like for Venus to connect with Saturn, the planet of structure, responsibility, time, and I remember there was an episode that you had done last year, and you talked about Saturn and Venus and this idea of powerful devotion. I'm not sure if this rings a bell to you, but
Sure.
I just think, yeah, like, so when these two planets come together, I see that it's like love becomes a practice. It becomes a choice that we choose to show up every day. And I think in a world obsessed with instant gratification, it feels like devotion is scarce. And I think, well, devotion, it's like the meeting point of love, Venus, and commitment, that Saturnian piece. And it's where desire, Venus, meets discipline. And so I came up with 3 things of what I think devotion requires. So firstly, devotion requires boundaries. You need to exclude distractions and stay focused on one thing while saying no to other things, like that exclusivity piece. And then second of all, devotion requires action. And what you care for, you tend to, whether it's a person or a practice or a project. Devotion is an ongoing care for something or someone. And then lastly, devotion requires commitment. And I think love matures through commitment, and Saturn will show us that love can be built over time. So I had a little, I was thinking about this actually, thinking back to the cycle that started with Saturn and Venus back in April, I believe, and the conjunction, how it happened at 27 degrees Pisces, and I believe, Venus would have been exalted then. But I was thinking when I was doing my little meditation on this Saturn-Venus contact, I thought, okay, what was happening for me back in April, or just putting it out there, what were you pouring yourself into? Was there a relationship with a person or a practice or a place that was calling for more attention, that was calling for more of your attention? And now fast forward to August, in this opening square where it's like, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to stay committed? And I have a bit of an example, if you don't mind me going in. Oh, okay, awesome. So my parents are musical, and they are in a cover band, so nothing major. And so my mum she's more of a singer, and my dad was the drummer, but and that's his kind of like, that's what he was. He was in a band before he got married and had children, but now he just plays the bass guitar. But he is very musically inclined, and he is a bit of a musical perfectionist. And so about 10-15 years ago, my mum had bought him a drum kit, but she had shared with me last year that she actually has always wanted to play the drums, but has felt too scared to try, because I guess if you're married to like a musical perfectionist who is a drummer, you're it's a little bit like you're too scared to even try, because you don't want to face the criticism or be critiqued or that. So, but last year she just got this, I don't know, something shifted. She got this burst of courage and decided, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to teach myself how to play the drums. And so she enrolled in an online course, and she would practice when my dad would leave the house. And now, so over time, through her dedication to this art or this craft of making music, she was getting better and better. At first, when my dad would come home and she was still practicing, he would just not really acknowledge it, just kind of go into the room and wait till she's finished or something like that. But now she was saying he's sometimes, if she's practicing, he'll come and he'll join her, and they'll do a little like jamming session with him on the bass guitar and her on the drums, and she's just like, it's for her, it's so exciting. It's like they're creating they're in the flow, they're in rhythm together, and also she's been upgraded to the drummer in their cover band. So yeah, it's so cute. And then she was saying, yeah, right before our first gig, your dad pulled me aside and said, now don't go trying anything fancy now, just stick to the beat. I was like, that's brilliant, yeah. And she did, and she nailed it. So yeah, I just thought this is such a Venus Saturnian type of story in so many different ways. So, yeah.
I love it. That's brilliant. Earlier this week on the channel, everyone knows we spent some time looking at Venus's squares to Neptune and Saturn. So people have heard most of what I have to say about the square already from previous content this week. So you may go back for some more of my thoughts on that, but I love the way that you talked about what sacrifices are required for love, art, beauty, devotion, what persistent, disciplined, focused, mature moments in love or relationships could be coming through, and what I mean, sometimes our love is perfected through certain moments of heartache. I always say Venus and Saturn's like the aging of a fine wine. There's a maturation that Saturn provides us with that softens our edges as it provides edges. You know, it's like go through enough edges and you learn that they're just part of life, and you find ways of being more malleable and open. Interesting to think about Venus and Saturn and Venus and Neptune right away. I love that you made mention of Venus as a morning star. She's initiating something right now. That's a really important detail, especially the cardinality of Cancer and Aries. There's something that's being initiated. Maybe it's not completely stress-free, but it's creative.
Yeah, totally. And with the Venus, and specifically with the Venus square Neptune, I was thinking like the vibes for me was like just imagining someone on some kind of like romantic high or a beginning stages of a relationship where your newfound love interest can do no wrong. And then I was thinking that, and there's like Venus embarking on a new journey when she's that morning star phase, ready to explore and carry out her hopes, wishes, and dreams. And I think because it's that Venus and Neptune, so we're talking topics to do with love, artistic expression, spirituality. And I also was thinking that because it's the nature, the square, so it's the nature of Mars, it can feel, I feel like I've been saying this a lot, but it's just a real statement just to open up the month with this Venus and her squares to Neptune and Saturn, and there was a couple things that I thought. So it's going to be loud pronounced, right, with the square aspect, very dynamic. But there was another way that I was thinking about this Saturn, more Neptune and Venus, was like, I thought, okay, it really feels to me that possibly in this square, it feels like idealism meets initiation, where Venus is moving from this kind of fantasy or the seedling that was planted back in I think the Neptune conjunction was in 1 degree Aries around early May, 1st or 2nd of May. And so I'm thinking, idealism, what were you thinking about? And now, back in April, fast forward to August, it's like, okay, how are we moving from this fantasy idea into a lived experience? And then, or just maybe experiencing disillusionment. Like, where is this like, you might be facing a reality check. That's a Saturnian flavor to this. It could be maybe a wake-up call, or having emotional or romantic disillusionment. But I think because Venus is a benefic, it's not going to feel too jarring. I think it's just an invitation for to let go of this perfectionist idea and it's a time for Venus to experiment and to play, and it's like like you're becoming, and this process is not linear. It can be messy, and so it's just kind of like working your way through through this. But that's specifically what I had for Neptune and Venus. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it's a really powerful sequence to open the month. So I'm glad we took a little bit of extra time with it. And yeah, thank you for those. Those are really nice articulations. Really appreciate that. We're going to move into the second segment of the month, which is, it's very thematic this month. As the month moves on, it was really helpful for us organizing our content this month. It was like, oh look, here's the Mars patch. If we fast forward this a little bit, I want to show you this sequence that Tim is going to be talking with us about next. On August 6th, Mars is going to enter the sign of Libra. Let me advance this just a touch so we can see that. There you go. Mars in Libra on the 6th. Right after that, Mars will trine Uranus in the sign of Gemini. It's then going to oppose Saturn in Aries, and then it's going to oppose Neptune, and then it's going to trine Pluto. And in the midst of that, we've got a full moon in Aquarius. So you've got, let's repeat that. Mars enters Libra, immediately trines Uranus. I'll draw these out for you so you can see them. Here's Mars's trine to Uranus. Then we've got the opposition to Saturn. Then we've got the opposition to Neptune. Then we've got the trine to Pluto. So a very, very Marsy little section of the month. And oh, by the way, in the midst of all of that, we have the full moon in the sign of Aquarius. So let's see here. If I go to the 9th, we get our full moon in Aquarius on the 9th. So that section of the month, very dynamic. I can't wait to hear what you cooked up for us, Tim. And you know what? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to get the active speaker to show only, but I keep choosing, as you guys have seen, I keep choosing the wrong layout. So I don't know what I'm doing. Let's see here. We'll go back to this, and I'm going to put the chart back up on the screen, and I don't know if I can somehow reorganize us, but I'm going to try. Let's just do this for now.